One super controversial topic within the fat community and body positivity spaces is how your feelings towards yourself influence or do not influence the ways you treat other people. So for instance, many times when I talk about fat phobia, thin people will say, I'm not fat phobic because I don't care how other people look, I only care about how I look. And disclaimer, obviously, this can be influenced by things like eating disorders and trauma. The purpose of this video is not to attack anybody. However, I want to take you through why self-applied fat phobia for thin people or internalized fat phobia for fat people can influence the ways that you treat other people. I'm going to make an argument for my point using a study. Notice I'm not using the word approve, I'm saying make an argument for. Because if anybody says that they can prove something based on one study, don't believe them. This is the study I'm going to be using. If you want to read it for yourself, feel free. This study wasn't behind like any paywalls or anything. Basically what they did is they conducted an experiment. The participants were either assigned humans or animals. And depending on the category they chose, they had to pick between an obese person or animal and a non-obese person or animal and choose which one would have to be sacrificed in an unavoidable car accident. So basically, here's a fat person and a thin person. You have to choose one to get hit by a car. Which one would you choose? And then they also analyzed the participants' levels of disgust based on 3 kinds of disgust. Pathogen disgust, which is kind of like an ew, gross kind of disgust. That's designed to help us avoid viruses and infections. Moral disgust, which is a negative visceral reaction to things that we view to be morally wrong. And self-disgust, which is exactly what it sounds like. Participants showed a pronounced obesity bias against humans, which was negatively associated with their BMI and positively with their self-disgust. If you're not familiar with research, that probably sounds really confusing. Let me break it down. The study said that there was a negative relationship between BMI and obesity bias. What this means is as BMI increased, obesity bias decreased. So this means that people with a higher BMI were less likely to show obesity bias. People with a lower BMI were more likely to show higher obesity bias. And it had a positive relationship with self-disgust, meaning people with high amounts of self-disgust, people with high amounts of judgments towards themselves, were more likely to exhibit obesity bias. People with lower amounts of self-disgust were more likely to show lower amounts of obesity bias, which means that the participants with the greatest amount of obesity bias tended to be people with lower BMIs and high amounts of self-disgust, or in simpler terms, thin people who don't feel great about themselves. This is not a call to action to demonize thin people with insecurities. This is a call to action for thin people and fat people alike to engage in discourse about how the ways that we feel about our bodies can subconsciously influence the ways we treat other people. Now, I'm out of time, but tell me your thoughts.
Hey everybody, I'm a fat girl, so I remember every single fat character in film and television. I'm coming for one of your faves today, and you're not gonna like it. Fat Amy in Pitch Perfect. I'm not really a fan. Here's my thesis statement. Fat Amy is a two-dimensional, shallow depiction of a fat person so that the screenwriter can make fat jokes. That's it. Fat Amy's entire existence is to make thin people comfortable with making fun of her. Sure, Fat Amy uses the F word, which is definitely a sign of a fat person who has come to terms with their identity and has taken back that word as a positive or neutral descriptor. In reality, it's just a way of letting the audience know, hey, we're going to be making a lot of fat jokes in this movie, but it's okay because a fat person is making them, even though a thin person wrote those jokes. Something you'll notice is that Fat Amy is one of the most confident girls in the group. She has a lot of sexual confidence as well. Rebel Wilson wears beautiful makeup, she looks great, she has a fantastic wardrobe, but every time she does something that's confident or sexy, it's a joke. And that's not cool. Who's next?
So I found out about the shenanigans on Twitter when Fat Feminists tweeted about it. Skinny people using this song, specifically about growing up as a fat person, to talk about their teeth and how they're too skinny, and it's such a great analogy for where mainstream body positivity is now compared to what it was intended for. It was created to liberate the most marginalized of bodies, black, brown, disabled, fat, super fat bodies. And now it's been watered down to being about self-love and body image. This song isn't for you. This song isn't for you. Yes, I'm gatekeeping. Yes, I'm gatekeeping this. This is specifically about growing up fat and being fat. I just really wish thin people would stop commandeering these things and these movements. Inserting yourself, taking up too much space.
I'm a fat woman. I'm a tall woman. I'm a woman with blue hair. This is all totally neutral to me. Story time. I was at this backyard barbecue and I'm sitting there eating my food and the woman across from me who I don't know goes, "Are you sure you should be eating that?" And I was like, "Why? Is there something wrong with it? I thought like ants had gotten into the potato salad or something." And she goes, "You know, it's fattening." And I started to laugh. And then in the middle of my laughter, I was like, "Oh, we don't make comments about people's bodies like that." Oh, that's so inappropriate. Did she get up awkwardly and walk away while I was still laughing? Yes, she did. No body shaming allowed.
Opinion you have that might piss some people off.
Saying I don't want to be fat is at its core fatphobic. And I didn't think that this was a hot take until I just saw a video in which someone stated it outright, no context, and the comment section was just hateful. So I thought I would give some context of my own. The term fatphobia literally means fear of being fat. Now, do we use it as a blanket term for all hate and discrimination towards fat people now? Yes. But that is because of us. That is because of society. That is because over time, words can change and evolve, regardless of whether or not the original meaning still exists. And at the end of the day, when it all boils down in the wash, the reason that fat phobia exists, the reason there is so much hate and discrimination towards fat people, is because you don't want to be us. My presence in society is a constant reminder that fat is possible, that you could maybe one day be fat, and that is the worst thing that a lot of people can imagine. Because what do you actually mean when you say the term "I don't want to be fat"? A lot of people just mean I want to be healthy, I want to be happy, I want to love the body that I am in, I want to look in the mirror and be happy with what I see. All of which are like completely valid and correct and good to want and state. Don't get it twisted. But instead of saying any of those good things, you say, "I don't want to be fat." Like it is some inherently wrong thing to be. Like, if we're going to keep using fat as a derogatory term in society, then saying "I don't want to be fat" is a derogatory statement. Especially when you are using fat to mean so many things that you could just say outright. I honestly could only think of one reason in which "I don't want to be fat" is not derogatory, and that would be to say "I don't want to be fat" to mean I don't want to deal with that discrimination that comes with being fat. I don't want to carry that weight, like mentally, all day, every day, of knowing how much people hate you. Which is, again, very fair. No one should want to be discriminated against. But then just, again, say that. Don't be trying to put all of this on one statement, you know? I don't know. Maybe it's just time to evaluate what you mean by the statement, "I don't want to be fat," instead of going into a fat person's comment section and being a terrible person. That's just me. Food for thought.